here to come to talk about AI and planning. And this is a new endeavor for us to explore what's the relationship and what AI can do for planning and what is the pitfall of using AI for planning. So this is a new initiative that ACSP have a task force for urban planning AI. So the task force is tasked to talk about four things, basically. Okay, one is how does AI affect urban planning research and practice? And how do we collaborate with other organizations like Urban APA and other planning organizations like ASAP? And the second is explore the urban planning AI in education, and how do we educate our next generation of planners to use technology like AI to advance their planning career. The third one is how do we incorporate AI in workshop and ACSP conferences. And finally, we want to explore the ethical issues of using AI in research, practice, and education. So with that, and one of the tasks for this task force is to have a pre-ACSP urban planning AI workshop. That's where we come. And we have a great team to put together a great program. Professor John Landers from UPenn play a very leading role in put together a fantastic program. And he's an associate professor from UTA, University of Texas, Arlington. He's doing lots of behind the scene organizing help. And then we have a technology expert, Dr. Li Ying, who helped to put together the Zoom and all the technology required to make this possible. So I will turn over to Professor John Landers to say a few words.
Well, welcome everyone. It's so nice to see you all here. It's so nice to see so many old friends, and I think I have so many old friends because I'm so old.
John, we can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now? You all can hear me, right? Okay. I don't know why you can't hear me. We'll work on that, okay? Because I'm speaking into the microphone, so it should be working. Anyway, I just want to say a few things before we get the show on the road. The first is to thank our sponsors. I forgot how much conferences cost, and it turns out they cost a lot in Minneapolis. And we really appreciate the sponsorship of the University of Florida, of the IACP group, and we'll hear more about both of those a little later, from Texas A&M, and from the University of Pennsylvania Institute for Urban Research. We'll have some material out in front if you want to get more about the sponsors, so thank you very much. Second thing I want to say is to the presenters, when you come up, we put all your presentations in PDF form, which if you're expecting, if you have complicated links, they're not going to work. We told you they wouldn't work, and we're serious about it. But we're using a new sort of Acrobat interface where you you should be able to toggle it from place to place, slide to slide. We told people they have 10 to 12 minutes. We're going to enforce that. We also told them to limit it to 10 slides. And many of you didn't read the directions. It sent us 35 slides. They said you could do it in 10 minutes. No, you can't. And so you're going to have to figure out which 10 slides, not me, to use. And lastly, I just want to thank Zhang Ren. You know, I've been involved with ACSP for a long time. I was actually at the second meeting, which way back. And I know I've been involved with a lot of subcommittees, and usually someone gets asked to write to be a committee chair, and their job is to write a report that nobody will read, and will go on the website so the organization can say we are dealing with that purpose. But sometimes someone didn't get that memo, and he decided that the committee should actually do something and take a major leadership role in this emerging field. and particularly how it can help city planning. And I think when we look back 10 years from now, or 20 or 30 years from now, we're going to see this meeting as an incredibly important milestone in the history of our profession. So I'd just like to lead a round of appreciation applause for Zoom. Lee, I'm going to turn it over to you to say a few words. Can you want to say a few words, and you can?
Yes. Actually, I got a lot of chat messages from the audience because we couldn't hear you well. Sometimes I think when you got close to the mic, actually we lost your voice. So I'm not quite sure, like people are chatting about this in the chat. If you guys check the messages, there are lots of messages in the past couple of minutes. So for Zhongren's also, but I think especially during your talk, we lost like most of them.
Okay, is this better? Can you hear me now better? I mean,
yeah.
Okay, so I think you just have to put the microphone closer. I think that's, or you have to lean down. People difficult. So speakers, put the microphone and think of yourself about a rock star, as a rock star today. Lee, do you want to just say a few words of welcome?
Yes, thank you all for making this happen. And I just heard from Zhongren that there are about like 40 or 50 people in the room, and it's wonderful to see such a great turnout there in the room. And I'm also thrilled to share that we have almost 400 people registered to join us online today. Thank you all for being there and for your interest in this exciting topic. I also want to take a moment to express our gratitude for all of our sponsors, including International Association for China Planning. And I also want to say thank you for all of the colleagues on the organization team. It's been a real pleasure for me to collaborate with all of you to make this happen.
Thank you so much, Lee. And lastly, let's hear a little bit from Wei Zhe, and representing Texas. And all I can say is, as a loyal Philadelphian, go Birds.
Yeah, I will go quick. I just want to appreciate all the presenters. You all send abstracts on time, and you all sent me the presentation files. I was talking with John yesterday. We got all the files ready already. It's really exciting, and without your commitment, without your involvement, we cannot have this workshop here today. And I also want to really give all the credits to my colleagues, Dr. Zhong Renpeng, Dr. John Landis, and Dr. Li Ying for their fundraising, tireless fundraising efforts. It's really a big thing to get money, get funding to have this workshop here. And yeah, I think that's it. Appreciate everyone, and welcome. Thank you.
So let's get going with session one. You all should have, I think, the, hold on, where is it? Okay, share. And of course, okay. All of you at home, can you see the program? People here can see it, good. Is it sharing at home? Let's assume it is. So let's get right to the program. We have 3 sessions in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and then 2 plenary sessions. And we have an hour for each. And as I said, we're going to hold you to 12-minute presentations, leave enough time for questions. So Justin, you are up first, and we're going to let each person introduce themselves rather than spend time doing it. And so it's a pleasure to welcome Justin Hollander. Remember, you have to speak with me. Okay. No. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Now I gotta shrink this. I'm not sure how to.
Okay. Good morning.
So yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here and honor to start. I mean, what an honor. So my take on AI and planning has a few different dimensions. Really, I've been interested in these topics for many years. I've done research using large language models, done different types of innovations in my teaching around AI. But one of the things that has really bothered me for a long time since ChatGPT first came out and made such a scene is this kind of idea that the very notion of knowledge has to be fundamentally rethought. Like, who knows what? That was really what I got kind of stuck on. So did some research with some of my students to even just kind of think about like, well, like in urban planning, you could kind of think about two different types of knowledge: the process knowledge that we spend so much time working with our students on. That's the technical and managerial skills type of knowledge. That's the soft skills, right? So that, I mean, my department, our professional PAB accredited master's program is 2 years. So they're spending a lot of time over the course of those 2 years. They're doing an internship. They're doing essentially like a studio, like a huge amount of that, right? But there's also this content knowledge. That's the facts, rules, best practices. And the word on the street, anecdotally, is you don't need to know anything anymore. So what we did was we were actually inspired. There were these medical researchers who asked a very similar question. We were inspired by them to ask whether ChatGPT might be a better source of knowledge about planning over human experts. And we looked at Reddit, particularly. So, people, when they're looking for knowledge, whether it's my own grad students preparing for an exam or dealing with a project like in a studio, they could look online. They could look at Reddit, see if anyone's posted about it. They could go to Google. They could go to a library and go to books, right? There's all these different paths that people can use. What we have found, the research has shown that not only planning students, but planning practitioners are increasingly using social media as a way to kind of learn about planning, and planning practitioners as well. So what we did in this study was we collected 152 questions and answers. So there were the pairs of where someone posted a question, and then there was an answer by a verified planner. So again, Reddit has a mechanism where if you have appropriate credentials as a practicing planner, you can get verified. So we found the 152 of these that were prompts where someone said, how do you create affordable housing in high rent cities? Someone posts this onto social media, and then verified planners responded. So we got 152 of those Q&As. So then we posed those same questions to ChatGPT, and then we went to expert planners that we know through our own network, and we asked them to evaluate those two responses. And we did two things in that evaluation. One was simply just which was better, so that dichotomous choice, and the other was an assessment of quality, 1 through 5. So here it is. Yeah, I mean, they really liked the AI picks better, 73%. And then even looking at the scores, just on that Likert score, it was a significant difference in terms of the AI over the human. So among all the 152 questions, 83 of those, for every query, there was 2 evaluators, they agreed. So, pretty decent, more than half of them. And then in terms of when there was a human response, it was better. only 12 agreed on that. So that was not quite as much consensus. I just want to give you just a couple examples, just to give you a flavor of what we were trying to do here. So the question, how can urban planning address the urban heat island effect? That's an actual question. Someone posted onto Reddit. And the real live planner said, shrinking the size of roads and parking lots, increasing transit access, and renaturalizing streams will all help. And you can see by making it in purple, that's the one that the evaluators thought was better. Green infrastructure like parks, green roofs, and additional trees could add shade. Additionally, green building design and reducing the use of cars linked with planning, outreach, and educational programs can help. How are we doing on time? Everyone's just so enraptured. Okay, good. I'm just gonna go through these last ones and then I can conclude. So the question, can planners put grocery stores and shopping malls? In this case, it is notable that the human response was better. Some historical context is needed to understand the zoning that allowed for malls to be built in the first place, which expressly prohibited grocery stores. But where malls are failing, planners are working to change the zoning to allow grocery stores in malls. And so I won't read it out, but the AI response, I mean, it's just very different and just a lot less on topic. This notion about storage for perishables, I mean, it's just a very different kind of idea. So what we found in terms of our kind of own qualitative assessment of the 152 was that the AI responses tended to be very rich with extraordinary detail, and then really kind of focus on like a very kind of positive, benefits. Planners' responses were better at situating the question in historical context, and their answers were a lot more sophisticated. In many ways, you think about like someone who actually went to college or grad school and studied planning, that is more likely that they would have given those kinds of answers. So in conclusion, I mean, it's certainly startling to see the quantitative numbers, to see how many people saw the AI is better, but let's not like ignore the fact that it's a supplement, because it didn't get into the kind of sophistication that the human did. In many ways, you can also think about the ways that generative AI can potentially enhance public engagement, provide some preliminary insights. Like, there's a role here because they are capable of giving very good answers, very good kind of knowledge, content knowledge answers, but not as equipped as professional around planners, around that kind of deeper nuance. And I think that's something that I feel good about, that we can't just all be replaced by robots. There's still a role for humans, but let's not, a little humility might help, that there is definitely some real power in these generative AI systems in providing those answers. So thank you for your attention, and happy to answer questions now or later.
People out there have questions and ask you to repeat the question.
Okay.
Because I don't know if the external microphone is working. So thank you very much. That was a 9-minute presentation. I just want people to know that Justin's original presentation, 25 minutes. Came up with these slides, so this is a lot of effort. So 3 or 4 minutes for questions. Any more comments from the audience?
When the planners were responding, like was it one planner, was it several planners? Like how was that? That might have missed it.
Yeah, so the question is just about how many planners responded to each question. And so what we did, and I don't think I was very clear, on Reddit, we picked the response, the human response to the post that was the most uploaded.
Oh, I see.
So if there were many human responses, we only focused on the one that was considered by the hive mind to be the best. Yeah, so the question is, what if it's like a specially designed AI agent that's supposed to answer the question? Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I mean, I believe that AI agent that's specifically honed to this task, would do a better job. But I still think that they would lack the kind of nuance and sophistication that a human would bring, especially being able to draw on life experience and historical context. So I still think there's a ceiling for an AI agent. That's my opinion, but supplementary. Yeah. The next study. Make sure you cite this study though.
Were they longer, smoother, that might have had an effect on the
Yeah, so we did actually do some analysis, statistical analysis, and try to understand to what extent the length of the response had any bearing on whether or not it was chosen, and no, it did not. But thank you for asking. It's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah. If you answers very sensitive on what the purpose is from. I wonder if try this all right to this. Say, answer the questions based on California versus based on Texas or New York. Or answer the questions based on the knowledge before that 80 or after that 2020.
Right.
I wonder if the answer to what people are familiar with.
Yeah, so the question, those of you online, it's really just to what extent, if you provide additional context around the geography or the historical time frame, how might that influence? And yes, I'm sure it would. So, what we were trying to do by just taking the verbatim posts, the humans who responded on Reddit didn't have any access to any sense of context or geography. So we were curious kind of how those compared. Thanks.
Study, you provide a scenario and then see how AI make the decisions, right? And how that also is able to make the country that is that and basic language.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you. There's a question in the back. Do we have time for more questions?
One more question.
Okay, that's it. I'll end the back.
I wonder your question is how many questions are really local, context specific? That's where I think the difference is made. So how specific? Give an example like how specific the context is proposed.
Yeah, so that's a great question in terms of the 150 something questions that we looked at on Reddit, how many were like local and very kind of specific to like a city. So yeah, I did not make that clear in this presentation. We actually did call out anything that had any kind of a geographic reference. So these are only questions that were written in a kind of vague, generalistic way. So that is why the sample. So there was some bias in the sampling, but yeah, we only wanted to include those so that to avoid that problem.
I imagine if we are then end up with competing with the learning more quickly at the end. If ChatGPT AI becomes such a great learner, then it becomes very fast.
It might do a better job of learning. Thank you. So I published it actually in Town Planning Review, so you guys can all check it out. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Here's some people who can't hear the audio, so we're gonna just try and see if we can do a quick swap. You have Zoom? Is this on Zoom?
Yeah, I just mute John's.
Okay, so is this better, Lee?
I
This
think
better?
so. I think so.
All right.
Because the voice
Oh, it's there.
was like
I don't know. That's the powers. No, it's not.
Power. Okay.
And can we get like a second speaker for people who are asking questions?
We cannot hear. Let me see. Okay. We cannot hear you. Can you hear us, Lee?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
I can hear you.
Is it better than the previous one?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And
let's do
can
this
we
then.
get like a second mic for microphone
no-
for people who
There's
are
no
asking
connection
questions?
there,
There's no connection, so,
so we have to use this one.
Okay.
okay.
All right. Okay.
Oh. Okay. Okay, well, hopefully this will work, and I'll speak even louder than I normally do so that people at home can hear. So for many years at UPenn, I taught studio, our introductory studio, and I was sort of partial to the strategic planning model. Some of you may not be as partial as I am. And if you know strategic planning, you know you start with what's known as a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's the starting place. It's not the ending place. And I always thought that was a pretty good way to approach the world and looking at places and new trends and things like that. But I've noticed over my career, when it comes to new technologies, that too many planners sort of invert those letters, and they start with weaknesses, and then they talk about threats, and maybe they talk about strengths, and rarely did they get around to opportunities. Okay. And when it comes to technologies, I don't think that's a good way, emerging technologies, I don't think that's a good way to think about things. Because in my experience of basically almost 50 years of working with computing and planning at this point, I think generative AI, and I'm going to talk about generative AI, has the potential to be more transformative, potential, not reality, but potential to be more transformative than any other technological innovation I've seen. And I think it's very important for planners to embrace that potential and to push that potential forward and to take a leading role in that. And that motivated the topic of my presentation today, which is called Lead, Follow, Get Out of the Way: Generative AI and the Future of City Planning in America. And to be clear, I'm talking about the practice of city planning. And I, having been an educator for a long time, I see my principal role as preparing future practitioners as well as future researchers and future knowledge makers. So I'm very interested in how all these things fit together and how knowledge informs practice. And I see tremendous potential in generative AI. So to be clear, when I first tried out the phrase lead, follow, get out of the way, nobody knew where that came from. It's actually a not so obscure reference to a general in World War II named George Patton. When asked what his leadership style was to dealing with the people in his command, he said, there are basically three ways you can go about achieving progress. Lead, that is, take an initiative. Follow, that is, follow someone who's taking the initiative. Or get out of the way and just not be an impediment. And I think that offers a lot of potential for thinking about AI and the future of planning. To be clear, leading means undertaking coordinated efforts to train the latest generation of AI models with local data, enabling them to take a productive role in as many everyday urban planning tasks as possible. So leading means taking the initiative. Following is not a bad thing. Sometimes you can't take the initiative, and following means waiting for others to develop application-specific AI models and then updating them with local data. This idea of local data is going to come back and again. And sometimes being a follower makes more sense in terms of resources than being a leader. And getting out of the way isn't so much a coherent strategy as it is encouraging individual planners to use generative AI in whatever way they find most comfortable, which is to say, not deny AI, but to basically say, how does it work for you in your job individually? So leading
is an institutional approach. Following is a sort of an institutional approach. And getting out of the way is more of an individual approach. Okay, so let's see. Okay. I mentioned before that generative AI is a combination of promise and peril. And I've been writing a paper that hopefully will come out on this. And the promise is increased productivity and increased efficiency. And that means doing existing tasks more cheaply. So you get more, which means more total outputs per input. Faster in terms of faster turnaround, which is really what the decision makers we advise really want to see. They want their questions answered now. And for us, our concern is mostly better in terms of being more responsive to the needs of our clients and to decision makers. So different people have different expectations out of improved productivity. And I think it's important that we address the faster, better, and cheaper things altogether. Now, there's a peril here, and I've written about the peril. I looked at past trends, and I looked at what happened the last time the digital revolution sort of let loose, and that was in the early 1980s with the advent of spreadsheets. And I looked at spreadsheets and word processors, and I looked at two occupation groups that used spreadsheets and word processors. And I looked at secretaries and typists, and this is all from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and accountants and auditors. And in 1980, secretaries and typists made up 4.8% of the American workforce. By 1990, that was down to 3.8%, and by 2000, it was down to 3%. Now, the workforce was growing, so the declines in numbers weren't as great as they seem here. Accountants and auditors were 0.6% in 1980, 1% in 1990, and 2000, they were 2%. Now, there's a lot going on here, not the least of which is that most secretaries and typists are women, and a lot of accountants are men, and so there's a lot of gender differentiation here that we have to take account of. But the big difference is that accountants and auditors had a strategy. They were going to be on the cutting edge of using spreadsheets to improve the productivity of their work. And in the case of secretary and typists, it was really sort of a follower, get out of the way strategy, which is to say they weren't organized to take the initiative in this area. So I think the choice is clear. If we lead, we have an opportunity to increase our influence and maybe even numbers. And if we follow or get out of the way, then it will really come down to individual cases. I've been around long enough to see four planning revolutions. In 1968, the local statistics and spatial analysis revolution, which started out with GBF dime files and SPSS, and Harvard's initial experimentation with GIS and something called SciMap. In 1983, there was what I call the what-if revolution, which was the idea of using spreadsheets to have different scenarios, to change one cell entry and watch how it permeated through. In 1996, the desktop mapping revolution, which really involved the ease of use of ArcView 3.0. And in 2010, the any data anywhere for free revolution, which is what we take advantage of today when we call big data. In each case, these revolutions followed a similar path, and I've sort of listed that on the side. With a new technology is introduced, people use that technology to do the same things they've always done, but faster, better, and cheaper. Next, a young cadre of professionals adopts the new technology to automate a regular task. Then they say, well, we can go beyond automation to do it better and uncover new knowledge and insights. This leads to an expanded demand for what they do. And universities are in business of providing the labor force for meeting that expanded demand, and then the cycle begins anew. And I think this is probably what's going to happen with AI. So someone is telling me I have 4 minutes. So I wanted to figure out not how generative AI is what it's doing now in planning, but what it could be doing in 3 or 4 years. Its role in 3 or 4 years. If I have time, I'll talk about the J curve, which is the way new technologies come in. When new technologies come in, they initially come in and everybody's very optimistic about it. There's a lot of investment, but then they don't quite pan out for 2 or 3 years. It usually takes about 4 to 5 to 10 years before they really show up in a big way in both the productivity and activity statistics. I'll talk more about that. The typical J curve has taken about 15 years to reach that
productivity point, we think AI will take about 3 or 4 years, generative AI, which would put us in 2030 before we start seeing big changes. The changes in practical planning are going to be in, I think, 6 areas, and these are the things that practicing planners do. They conduct development reviews, they respond to requests for information, they maintain essential planning databases and archives, they develop community profiles, forecasts, simulations, and scenarios. They create community level plans. They create small area and physical design plans, and they identify, prototype, and evaluate innovative projects and programs. And I didn't have Justin's Reddit here to pull this together, so I actually asked ChatGPT, what are the 7 most important things planners do? And it came up with this list, which actually I helped it a little bit. In order for us to achieve progress in these ways, we're going to need some special generative AI is going to need some special capabilities, which are going to involve local training with local data to make use of those capabilities. The first is what I call CSSR, context-specific sequence recognition and prompted recombination. What a mouthful. That's basically what large language models do. They look at past sequences of words or thoughts or ideas and put them together in what seem to be original, but what are actually reductive ways. And so we're pretty good with that, but we're going to get better. 1 minute. Map and image cognition and prompted recombination, which is to look at maps and digital maps and things like that and understand what they're about and to put them together in new ways. And lastly, reinforcement learning, which is to work iteratively with humans to come up with iterative solutions that involve both human intuition and knowledge, as well as machine-based logic. So I think we're going to see progress in all of these areas. And as we do over the next 3 or 4 years, again, with that compressed J-curve, I think we'll see improved sequencing and improved map recognition and graphic recognition. And I particularly think we'll see the integration of human knowledge and in the form of reinforcement learning. Here's just the idea of a J-curve. That first person is up there. Does anybody know who that first person is? Anybody know who that is? James Watt, who invented the steam engine. It took 50 years for the steam engine to make a difference in the world. Second person, anybody know who that second person is? It's Bill Gates, who basically brought the PC to the desk. Took about 20 years before PC started showing up in productivity. And people look at this, who look at this now think, okay, we're compressing this J curve, so we're going to see a big changes probably within the next 3 or 4 years. And I'll just close by saying that the way labor markets react to innovation in 3 ways, and planning constitutes a labor market. There are about 45,000 practicing planners in the US. It's not the biggest profession, but it is a sizable one. And when we look at past innovations and how they've affected job markets, 3 things happen. Workers whose skills are easily automated lose their jobs. That's what we're worried about. Anticipating the threat of possible redundancy, workers upgrade their skill sets to enhance their job opportunities. So workers say, hey, I got to get on board and become more productive with this technology itself. And lastly, innovation reduces the prices of existing goods and services, leading to additional demand and expanded job opportunities. That was the accountant scenario that I talked about. A second order income effect may also occur. Now, the important thing to note is that each of these effects tends to occur on its own timeline. It's not coordinated. So figuring out who's going to lose their job and how many people are going to lose their job and what the demand for planning is going to increase and how it's going to increase, it's hard to know in prospect. But we can have an idea on how to think about it. And I'm just going to conclude with 5 points for how we can take a leadership role in dealing with generative AI. I'm happy to send these to you. It involves collaboration between ACSP, APA, and other planning organizations, but it involves the recognition that we need to take a leadership role. Thank you very much for your time. And I think I've used up my question time, right?
You have 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes, which in AI time is 25 minutes.
Well, thank you. Any questions for John? Yes.
Thank you, John. I'm Sam Hovidi from Aalto University, the other side of the world, Finland. and I'm representing GPM and ASO together. Very inspiring. On the ethical and value matter, talking about AI, don't you think that that same blind spots in human thinking is also reflected in the AI? So if you give a generative perspective for a future city, it's a lot of flying cars and greens. There's nothing about inequality and wealth distribution, for example.
I don't worry about that much. So I think, I think AI has a number of advantages, both in the classroom and practice. One is its speed. The second is its ability to generate alternatives that are real alternatives. And the third is to find new relationships in the data that people otherwise hadn't seen, and those are real advantages. Its disadvantage is its tendency to hallucinate, which is to invent results that aren't real. And despite efforts to reduce the hallucination rate, the estimates are it's still about 20% of applications AI uses have severe hallucination problems, and I include bias in that hallucination. I'm very encouraged by the idea of reinforcement learning, which some people see as guardrails, but I see as an interaction between people. And so in the latest versions, which is sort of ChatGPT's 04 version, that you can set the machine to come back to you and say, or the AI to come back to you and say, this is what I've got so far, how can I improve it? And you give it some guidance, and it comes back to you and says, with again and again, and again, it does that very quickly. So I think there are workarounds for the very specific problems that you identify.
I have a question about the J-curve, which I think is a really interesting argument around adoption. Should there be a different J-curve for AI than for generative AI? Because AI has been with us since the 60s. And I guess if Marvin Minsky were giving a talk about the J-curve 60 years ago, that 15-year horizon would look very different than a generative AI J-curve. So how do you think about where that stops?
Boy, that's a great question. So when I think about AI, I think about machine learning versus generative AI, and I think they're slightly different. The J-curve for machine learning in social sciences has been about 15 years before when we first had unsupervised classification doing really interesting things. That was about 20 years ago. It took about 15 years for it to get down. I think generative AI is going to, as I say, take 3 to 5 years for the simple reason that generative AI models can write their own code, okay, which we've never seen before. Thank you.
Thank you.
He doesn't need any introduction, so I'm running back.
Thank you. Let's see, I wanna do this. So I wanna start and then share it again. All right. Okay, good. Good morning. I'm going to time myself here. I have lots of slides, but I'll keep it 12 minutes. So what I'm going to talk about is the notion of symbiotic planning using the core framework. So this is my proposal, and I will give you some theoretical background about this, and then in next presentation I'll give some examples. So this is we have been doing. Urban planning has been a human-centered craft for shaping cities that reflect community values, right? But the scale and the complexity of modern cities has rendered traditional tools inadequate. So therefore, we need a new theory I call a symbiotic planning, where AI become a partner with humans. And the symbiosis treats AI as a civic infrastructure but under human premises. So as the Boshansky said that nothing in biology except in the light of evolution. So I adopt that. I said nothing in modern urban planning makes sense except in the light of co-creation. So what is symbiotic planning? I gave a definition that it's a human AI paradigm where humans define needs and uphold public value, while AI expand option set, reveal trade-offs, and the relationship is iterative and contestable. So symbiosis is a dynamic co-evolution, the human judgment plus AI reasoning chance. That's different from the traditional co-design principles. So the core theory here is positioning AI as a civic infrastructure for co-creation, synthesize rational analysis and participatory legitimacy.
People cannot see the screen. Can we share screen?
You cannot?
Yeah, online cannot see the screen.
Oh,
Yeah, yes,
but it's shared. So here, share.
Can you share again?
And then,
Yeah, probably this one.
okay. Can they see it now?
Yes, it's good enough.
Okay, good. All right. So what is symbiotic planning? We want to specify the AI's role in the agent as agent, and then it's a normative here. It means that it specifies how AI is governed, but not whether AI is intelligent. Okay, and so collaboration here is operationalized, not anthropomorphic. So where I propose like AI propose, the human dispose. And of course, there are lots of planning theories we have been in this field very familiar with, participatory, rational co-design. But this notion of a symbiotic planning is combination of those, but different. How Lisa some of the table here, I'm not going to the details about this, but the idea here is like we wanted to have the AI and the planners co-evolution, influence each other, rather than we using AI purely as a tool. So why do we do it now? Why do we need a new theory about right now? And I think there is a gap, a theoretical gap. There's no framework bridge planning theory with AI governance. And there is also lots of studies, right, anecdotal examples of using AI in urban planning process. But there is no framework, no guardrails to guide the process. So I think it's the time right now. We are still in the early stages of using AI to process urban planning in the planning, improving planning process. So it's the right time to have a new theory, provide a framework, provide a guardrail for future urban planning AI. So the theoretical foundation of this theory is, I listed several of them: collaborative planning, deliberative democracy, complex systems, power asymmetries. So the goal here is to situate AI as a non-neutral and require governance. Okay, and of course we have the traditional urban planning theory. We have forest deliberative practice and collaborative rationality and all those great planners theory in the past. But here in the symbiotic planning, we want to ground theory into testable propositions. Like for example, transparency plus contestability lead to legitimacy in contested contexts. So the idea is we wanted to have the theory contestable and audited. So in order to build the theory, we needed to have like a axiom. Axioms have 5 of here. So it's basically the idea here is like translate the deliberative democratic theory into actionable AI governance, so that we know who is doing what. What's the role of planners? What's the role of the AIs? So I said that here is the planners as a designer, interpreters, coordinator of AI systems, and stewardship of the equity flows and appeals path. So we have I defined the roles and tasks of pathways. In the last year, I did a presentation about the pathway of AI, urban planning AI, from assisted, augmented, automated, and autonomized. Some of you are probably familiar with it. But then I received lots of comments about, who decided? If everything is autonomized, who is going to decide the final plan, right? So do we need some guardrails? So this is like a continuation of the discussion. So I provide some examples, like planners, when they are doing AI doing assistant, augmented, they are in the loop. When they are automated and autonomous, they are on the loop. Okay, that means if something goes wrong, and the planners will have to step up. So why we have the core? So the core here is basically you provide an operationalized symbiosis. How do you the symbiotic planning theory? How do we operationalize? So I have this like a core framework: the collaboration, options, refinement, executions. And here I just simplified what are the AI doing in each of the steps, and what are the planners should do in each of the steps. Due to the time limit, so I'm not going to the details. So the plan here is we need to have an invariance in order to clearly define what is the core means. So I have those 6 invariants here. For example, specify the role as leader, support, approve. And then we have transparencies appear in every single decision-making process. And then we have the simulation version and change log. So it means that everything in every step is contestable and have a record. Okay, it's making sure it's transparent. So in terms of what core, I want to very briefly explain what it is. The collaboration here is we wanted to make a legitimacy scale. Okay, so AI augmented deliberation for community goals. So AI work with the planners to augment community goals here. And so we have a charters like a mapping, synthesize, and equity participation. So we have how to do that. I propose some standard about how do we define constitute collaborations. And in this step, we clearly define the roles of a community as a core frame, planners facilitate, AI is synthesize and reduce bias, and then decision makers approve. The second component is option generation. So here, this is traditionally AI's strength. You generate lots of options for the planners to decide, which options to make sense to choose. But then we have to also clearly define, what are the characteristics, or what are the criteria we have to use for planners to make decisions, which option to use, right? And the refinement means it's like it's basically AI critical of itself. So sometimes the planners will be very critical. Some also other times AI actually more critical. So we ask the AI to be more critical about its own generation, right? On option generations. And then finally, execution. This is traditionally planning is not doing a good job. Is after the plan is done, how do we execute it? And here, because of AI, we wanted to using the AI to be adaptive, because one of the strengths of AI is evolving when new data comes in. It will changes over time. So this is the strength of AI. And okay, just 2 more slides. Okay, so what is the where we go from here, right? So I propose some theoretical methodology, empirical things that we should do as planners, as researchers, to how do we advance into the future. And of course, there are some barriers that we all know, right? So there are different open questions like a pathway governance from assistant to autonomous. Does it raise trust for the planners? Do the planners trust it? And then if we want to say have the equity flows across different cities, across different regions, would that help? Or is this more technical delays? And then there's also a readiness and the barriers. We probably all encounter, or we'll talk more about this. And then finally, so I have lots of slides, but this is the core message. I propose like we have this symbiotic planning, and I create why we want to do this and what is entail, and then how do we go forward, right? So the takeaway here is we want for research, we put all the urban planning AI research in a framework, and so that we can test some of the propositions and do pilot the core framework and collaborate in the future. So this is a theory, and in next presentation, I'll give some case studies. So with that, thank you.
I'm going to use my privilege as moderator to go directly to the next slide, next presenter.
Okay, sure.
So if you want to talk more to Zhongren, there'll be a little time after the break, which is now 10 seconds. But Wei, you want to give us a?
Yeah.
Okay, just say.
Yeah.
Also, they can see it.
Yeah, for online participants, you can see that. Okay, I just want to continue the
They cannot see it.
They cannot see it. We should share screen. Yeah. We share this screen, the main screen. How about now?
Yeah.
Yes. I totally agree with Dr. Peng's last slide about AI should be a civic infrastructure. But as you know, when we're talking about infrastructure, we have to face challenges in equity. That's why my project, my research is mainly focusing on how we can have a responsible AI framework to have community work on those AI and digital twin models. Yeah, when we talk about AI and digital twin, it's fancy, sexy terms. but it also means expensive, especially for communities when they have less funding, when they have poor infrastructure, even no Wi-Fi, and no community scientists. And that's why I see responsible AI can be a future for us to work on community project in terms of data, 3D model for urban space and social physical interaction. So this is a picture about the community I worked with in San Antonio historical website. And over 90% of the residents, they basically are, Hispanic and Mexican, and they can, the average income is over $30,000 for the household. And they really need technology, but they don't have any opportunity to have access to that. So in my responsible AI framework, the first part is about data. We always want to have fairness, enhanced data collection to have unbiased data collected. We have, sensors, we have cameras, we have drone, we have LiDAR. All these technologies, of course, they can be applied to communities. The challenge is how we can reduce bias, how we can enhance fairness, how we can make it responsible. Like we are trying to have the AI Fairness 360 toolkit, which includes over like 70 algorithms in the platform and 9, models to address those bias issue. And as you can see, I work with my team. We have installed those sensors, collect the data in the community, run the even drone and also 360 camera to capture data and give the community the real unbiased and impartial data. Another challenge is about how we can have privacy conserved, preserved in the data collection with AI. One approach is about federated learning. That is, we can, not just transferring data to a server or a core database. We just process data locally, in edge computing, edge computer, and edge processor. And all the sensors, all the processors can learn with each other through co-learning algorithms. And that's how we can, get rid of the privacy and the sensitive data in the edge computer and get the final, unbiased data and privacy conserved data. This is technology we applied, like we have a backpack with, edge processor. When we are collecting data, it's going to be processed and produced immediately after collect data rather than just share data with anybody. Another thing is that sometimes we collect images in our community, in our neighborhood. We want to collect data, of course, but it can also invade privacy when you have image. For example, when you go inside people's home, when you do survey, when you do some community job, probably gonna get some pictures, but it can show some photos of the home. But even not inside the home, just outside the community, you probably get some people's faces, and also it got calculated numbers. We propose we should get some like diffusion models to get synthetic data, and then we can upload data to our platform. We create a app and a toolkit that allow people to get the images directly to our platform, and whether it's images or video, we can create a model for you, and you can get it in a responsible way. Of course, we can use some LiDAR sensor because it's only collect point cloud data, and it's not image data. For example, we try to run the sensor in residents' home, inside the building, and also outside the community. So we don't collect any images, just point clouds. But the challenge is that if you have worked with any sensor technology, also LiDAR sensor we use, it's over $10,000 for just one sensor. If you really want to apply that in community, low-income community, that's basically impossible. That's why we further think about, can we do a low-cost way that's really make it accessible to residents, to community members. That's why we try to have iPhone, just general, smartphone, you can use that. You can collect the data with a camera, and it can automatically generate the 3D model for your home. It can be a furniture, it can be a wall, it can be a couch, and a 3D space. And we just also have a kid, in the West Side neighborhood, it's 10-year-old kid, and we just let him use our technology, and he can just scan his home. And this is a model from his home. That's from his cell phone. We didn't do anything. He can collect data and export the data. Just 10-year-old kid. We just want to prove if everybody can use this one. And But not every smartphone has a LiDAR sensor like Apple device. So we also think about what if we have Android cell phone. What if I can only take pictures? Can I still have the digital twin model for my home? Yes, we do. We also have another way to get images. You can get the 3D model based on the images. This is our hotel, and actually this is a model that you can rotate it upside down. But it's not interactive here. We also ask the resident to have a responsible use guideline agreement. You have to sign this and read this. After that, you can use this our technology. Another challenge when we work with community is, it's not every place, not every corner of the community you can go to. Like for home, you can probably just walk, in front of a house. You cannot really go inside the home or go to the backyard. That means you cannot collect every, data for the community. How we can address that? We're also proposing like we can have some white box, AI model, transformer models. Like if I have only 2 images, of the home, can I have the whole, model of this home? Can I get another side of the building? That's what we are working on now, to have some transformer model and in a reasoning way, not a black box deep learning model. And another way is how we can integrate different components, the trees, the cars, people, community, and it's not just buildings. It's not just physical space. How we can integrate all these components. We also propose a joint learning approach through a responsible AI algorithm. Final application about responsible AI is how we can really bridge physical and social component in our community. We are proposing to have a knowledge graph, including adding some large language models to make it automatic, like how we can collect physical data. Like we have a urban space model, how we can use it for tracking people's behavior. We just gave a very simple example to community, like when we have a building, when we have a home, your home can have shading. The building is going to cascade a shade, but it's changing every minute, right? And how it's going to affect your behavior inside and outside of your home. The temperature is going to be cooling down if you have shade. All this is going to be connected. That's why we think about how we can have a knowledge graph approach, to get everything connected in our platform. But on the other hand, we will also want to include our community to ensure they are in the loop about our, digital twin model generation. That's why this is the last slide. We propose a community-driven urban digital twin workbook. How we can apply, AI in the whole process. It should be have some initial consultation, like we work with community. We have lots of meetings with them to ensure what do they want, what's their concern, what's their privacy. And we run the data, we run the camera, we run AI algorithm inside the homes. We then have the peer review evaluation, usability evaluation, and do some revision and about how to have governance, AI governance. And finally, we should have community, workshop to share the reasons, what we have done and how AI can be, really helpful to the community. And finally, we can launch our, platform and a tool. Yeah, I just want to acknowledge National Science Foundation for 3 projects on this effort with our community and all my collaborators in academia, and also really appreciate my community collaborators. Yeah, thank you. I hope we can stay on schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. We still have 2 minutes for questions. Okay, I know there's a lot to digest. I'm sure you'll have more questions and comments. So we have a 4-minute break. We're on time. Stay back here at 9:45. Thank you all.
They are also coffee in the outside, so feel free to use coffee.